Hi class, welcome to our third video for Shakespearean sonnets. Now that we've gone through all of the definitions for the terms that we need to know, we've practiced marking our scansion, our stanzas, and our rhyme scheme, it's time for us to really access the language. And everything that we've done up until this point is going to make this process a lot easier for us. So I'm starting with a blank version of Sonnet 18. You guys could have all of these different elements on here together, but I wanted to give ourselves a little bit of room. We'll want to mark off the stanzas because we know particularly that in a Shakespearean sonnet, the stanzas are actually broken down by what the information is all about. So we want to make sure that we're kind of keeping that in mind as we access the language here. And this will kind of help us with our understanding of the poem. So, quatrain 1. If you remember back to the definitions, quatrain 1 is going to be the introduction to the topic. So let's see what we think the topic of this first quatrain is. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's leaf hath all too short a date. So the topic that we have here is that we have a man comparing his lover to a summer's day. So this comparison is important. So if you can just take some notes on the side here. Lover to summer's day. Now, we want to look at the kind of comparison that's being made here. It's saying that the lover is more lovely and more temperate. Okay? So that fact that it's more lovely and more temperate, and actually I think I'll probably change my color here as we kind of go through and play with the lines. So if the lover is more lovely and more temperate, that lover is going to be better than summer. And so this is important. Think about how we perceive summer. We think of summer as being this wonderful, amazing thing, and it is. But if you're saying that your lover is better than summer, this lover has to be very, very special. And so that's what the author is trying to get across here. Now, why is the lover more lovely than a summer's day? It's because rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease has all too short a date. So summer can be rough, and summer's too short. And we can agree with this. Summer can be rough. It can be too hot. It can be too stormy. And we know that it's too short. September will be here very, very soon. So we get a sense of this general topic. And when we move into quatrain 2, we know that in quatrain 2, the wonderful thing is that the author is going to be expanding upon this idea. So if our topic isn't going to be a comparison, it's going to expand that comparison. So sometimes too hot, the eye of heaven shines. What do you think the eye of heaven is if it's shining? This is going to be the sun. And so the sun is sometimes too hot, and we know that it can be very unpleasant to get burned. And often is his gold complexion dimmed. So how does the sun get dimmed? In what instances? Sometimes it's cloudy. And every fair from fair sometimes declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. So this is where we get a little bit complicated, and every fair from fair sometimes declines. So fair has a positive connotation. So if fairness declines, this means that it fades. So beauty and summer fades. And this is kind of an important concept. By chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. So we never know what summer's going to be like. We could have hurricanes, we could have storms, and so therefore his lover is more steady than all of those things. Now, quatrain 3 has a very important term associated with it. It has this idea of the volta. The volta is the change. So we're changing from the comparison. All right, we're moving away from this. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when internal lines to time thou growest. So basically, her internal summer is not going to fade. So she will remain beautiful and young, and she'll not lose the possession of her fairness. So young and beautiful forever. Now we know that this is not logical. Everybody dies, everybody's beauty fades, but it's an interesting twist here. Remember, the volta is that change. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade. Here we have personification of death. And so death becomes a person. And death, would want this beautiful girl, this beautiful lover, because she's somebody to brag about. But death is not going to be able to do this. And this is the change. This is the reason why. When internal lines to time thou growest. The lines here are in reference to the poem itself. How is she going to grow in time through the lines of this poem? Well, the couplet, which concludes everything, is going to help us understand that. So as long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So this is the poem. The poem immortalizes the beauty of this lover. And this is a really important concept here. We started off kind of comparing the lover to the summer's day and how the lover is so much better. And it was about her beauty, but, we know that beauty fades and summer fades. But the way in which she is able to not fade and remain this beautiful is through the lines of her poem. So Shakespeare here is being, pretty slick, pretty sly with his words to his lady lover. She is going to be immortalized through his genius of poetry. And so we see how that change really develops. This is more than just a little bit of a love poem. It's also a love poem to himself. He knows that his lines are going to be read for hundreds of years, and he was right. We're still reading Shakespeare, and Shakespeare was writing in the 1600s. So really pretty amazing stuff we have going on here. Now, even though part of this poem was definitely difficult, if we really break it down, if we think about the way in which it's structured by its quatrains and couplet, it's much easier for us to access this language. So this kind of concludes all of the background that you need to be able to try to access Shakespeare's language on your own. Now, it's not going to be an easy task. This is not something that's going to come right away. It's something that takes practice. So the next step of this project is that you guys are going to be given 2 sonnets, and you will be asked to mark the scansion, which is we're marking the rhythm, the feet, and the pattern of unaccented, accented syllables. You're going to mark the rhyme scheme and the quatrains and couplet, and then you're going to go through and analyze the poem. And your analysis is going to be by each quatrain and the couplet. So take some time, practice a little bit, make sure that you've reviewed over Sonnet 18 in its entirety, and then when we get back to school, we'll be able to go over those 2 practice sonnets, and we'll move on through. There's also going to be a chance for an enrichment activity, and your enrichment activity is going to be to write a sonnet of your own. Now, it's pretty easy to break down Shakespeare's language and to break down his poetic structure because we know how it's supposed to be structured. But imagine putting ourselves in his shoes for a while. We're going to see how easy, or rather how hard, it really is to write in a Shakespearean sonnet. So thinking about all of these qualities, try to create your own Shakespearean sonnet. And again, we'll double check and see how it fits. Thanks, guys. Bye.